Kayırlı gün, добрый день. Here we have Azizullah, our co-host from Tashkent, I stream from Almaty, and we have Igor Ovcharenko. He is managing partner of White Hill Capital, Tumar VC. At the moment, Igor is located in Baku, helping with innovative ecosystem. Probably Igor can introduce himself properly, not like me. Later a bit, and we discussed, just Igor was sharing his experience from recent conference Chill in Riga. It was pretty cool, and we just wanted to discuss about some people VCs in Kazakhstan. They think deep tech will be some next big thing for Central Asia. I personally think it's not necessarily the case, because scientific infrastructure is little bit have more room to grow and little bit behind. I don't know how things are in Tashkent, Azizul. Maybe you later, if you want to comment about this. And we asked Igor, what does he think about VC ecosystem in Central Asia? And as always, don't forget to subscribe. If you have questions, type in comments, we will be answering. And the floor is yours, Igor. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Oscar. Azizullah, pleasure meeting you. I'm not managing partner though. I'm a partner in a White Hill Capital. The managing partner is Aslan, Aslan is the managing partner. But I'm managing the White Hill Capital. It's a 20 million fund from Kazakhstan. We invest in early and seed stage companies, not only in Kazakhstan, but predominantly in Central Asia, as well as we look into deal flow from Caucasus and MENA and other places. Maybe just as a segue, a bit of introduction, I started my journey into this startup entrepreneurship world in 2012, when I just by chance joined the biggest venture fund in Ukraine called TA Ventures. And I joined just as a event organizer, actually. So I just started by organizing the biggest tech conference for entrepreneurs and investors. So we had a ratio 2-for-1, basically 300 investors against 150 entrepreneurs, startups on the startup alley from 22 countries. That's considered to be one of the top 5 conferences in Europe by TechCrunch back in 2013. But then in 2014, we had to stop. I guess you all know the what has started in my country. And then later on, I joined a multifamily office from Italy called Ustart, and not only managing the startups, but investments, but also in private equity ones. And then later on, I joined SeedStars, where I was managing regional Central Eastern Europe, Middle East, North Africa, Central Asia. For 3 years, traveled extensively, including Kazakhstan, of course. And later on, I moved to Kazakhstan permanently for 11 months. And I was working with Info Communication Holding ZRD, which was with the mandate of the developing of startup ecosystem in the countries. This is how I met Oscar at one of the events in Almaty back in the day. Now I'm in Baku, as you mentioned, working on the similar thing for the government of Azerbaijan, dealing with basically what I was dealing back in Kazakhstan a number of years ago, essentially building the foundation of the startup ecosystem. But that's the intro part. Speaking about your question, Oscar, on the deep tech, I think that yes and no. From one perspective, as a Ukrainian, I think we have a bit better set of the tech developers in the country, and you can see companies like Grammarly and Riddle and others coming out of Ukraine, which is actually deep tech. In fact,
I didn't know Grammarly is from Ukraine. Cool.
It is.
It's global.
It is Ukraine.
It's almost unicorn, right?
It is a unicorn already. Yeah. So the very first big exit in Ukraine was actually image recognition technology, which was sold to Google in 2010 or 11. I don't exactly remember, but deep tech tradition is there in Ukraine since long time before it became mainstream, right? I do strongly believe there is an angle to that. I think in Central Asia and any other places. The talents are spread all over, and the Chat GPT and the upcoming like upgrades to Chat GPT actually helps in developing a lot of code. So I agree that there has to be a scientific background to, like, some people need to have some scientific background, but let's be honest, the Chat GPT is actually democratizing access to any type of research done globally, right? And it can analyze, it can provide. So you don't have to work next to one professor who's like, has been accumulating knowledge for 50 years, and like you kind of like update whatever he's given you and you try to commercialize it. Currently, you have kind of like shortcuts, right? I mean, I'm talking about this like beta versions of the next generation ChatGPT, which actually can write code, which can actually analyze this like massive sources of information, especially the R&D ones and everything that is related to science and research, which, this like Google for scientists, right? Essentially. So I do believe that the future of this like deep tech is also depends on someone who will be able to find unique ways or entrepreneurial ways of using that tools and transforming them into added value to the potential customers. So essentially finding the use of ChatGPT technology, like transforming this like deep tech into something tangible, reusable, or something that the clients would want to buy, whether it's enterprise or B2C.
Yeah, it makes
think?
sense. Maybe Azizullah, do you have thoughts? Because I shouldn't speak too much. In Central Asia. Yeah, go, sorry, please.
Yes. Recently, I also saw some papers on the AI being the personal tutor and being the personal assistant, teaching assistant for the professors, and being personal tutor for the learners. And I think that's very amazing because it's changing the educational system that haven't changed so many years till now. But I think we are right now in front of the major change in this industry. And what will you see some chances, or do you see some chances establishing some startups in this field? I mean, the edtech, or what are your thoughts about this?
I mean, edtech, again, coming back to ChatGPT and others, I think, let's be honest, lots of the industries are already disrupted or will be disrupted in the nearest future, right? And these technologies that we see right now, like again, ChatGPT and others, just like accelerates that, right? So it's like it's faster, the change right now. So I'm pretty sure that all the education will be personalized. All type of education, short-term courses, kind of like more fundamental things, like universities. Everyone will go on the path of practical learning and individual approach, right? So someone who is weak on, I don't know, one thing would have a special kind of like a curriculum, right? To just like target whatever this like lack of knowledge or weak spot of that person. So I think we're going into like a very, very like a new era of education and edtech solutions. And it's all about learning these skills, because we will see a massive shift again in the job offerings and types of jobs. And therefore people will be looking at, learning new skills, which will be quite different than the ones that me and you guys, we were learning in schools, even though we have a bit of a age difference, I guess. But I think we more or less studied more or less the same thing. So I think it's going to be disrupted big time, and it's going to be very much individualistic. So if you have any startups in edtech, send them over to me. I'll be more than happy to evaluate and see if the fund will be able to help them.
I wanted to turn a little bit the angle of the conversation about overall how do you assess the situation in the market, the startup market with these recessions, Why? Because what's the context? In Central Asia, we have a lot of IT schools, the small IT schools. They say, I don't know, Azizullah in Tashkent, probably the same. I just talked to Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, in Almaty. These IT schools, they say, we will teach you to be a coder in 3 months, and then they put this student to the market, and he wants to find job as a junior developer. But for example, in Bishkek, Kalichasych, GDG organizer in Bishkek, for one vacancy, job position in engineering, 100 candidates, graduates of these IT schools. Competition is huge. In Kazakhstan, for juniors, also not easy to find job. And people, at least I was asked a question a couple of times ago, where better to work, stick to corporation or to go to work to startup? And what do you think in this regards? How this startup universe world is? Are they fine with this recession? Evaluations got smaller. What would you advise to these junior developers? Because some people say it's now we need to build outsourcing centers in Central Asia to give work to all these people, but maybe better to turn them to startups. What are your thoughts on this, Igor, Azizullah? It will be really interesting for our viewers.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. So first of all, with the recession, let's be frank. Yes, that's a massive, big shift in California, Silicon Valley, all US, generally speaking, London. Okay, but the wave still had not hit us. Let's be honest. I mean, when I say us, it's Central Asia. I mean, the valuations that we have in Central Asia. Yes, I mean, they were it was over exaggerated because of, again, the same kind of like rates that they were referencing to in US, but they still haven't decreased their valuations, and there is no way to do that because there is a bubble, especially created by not that often, but sometimes created by this kind of like tourist investors. What I call tourist investors is someone who is not from the region, who doesn't have presence, but rather eager to invest a small check with increased valuation. So for instance, the startup is raising like, I don't know, $500,000, and they say the valuation is 10 or like 5. And then the investor would come in and say, hey, yes, I'm ready to, give you a small check of, I don't know, 100K, but I'm happy with the valuation of 7.5 or 8 or 10, and they just don't care because they don't understand the specifics of that region. They are looking at Crunchbase and the other sources, and they say, okay, the similar company is like now valued at like, I don't know, 100 million. Therefore, it makes sense to invest anything below 10. So they kind of like agree in that. So that's another thing. But I think in terms of recession, generally speaking, we still haven't seen that yet in Central Asia. Probably it will hit us a bit later, but the thing is about the ecosystems that are still building is that we're not too advanced to suffer from that, and we're not too underdeveloped to also suffer from that. So it's like I think because it's in the middle, we're gonna be fine. When it comes to the junior developers. Here's the thing, I'm from Ukraine, right? In my country, I don't think there's any issues in finding jobs for the junior developers. First of all, yes, we have a massive outsourcing industry in my country. And this is something that is organically growing. So the government is not necessarily too much involved into the construction of the new tech talent, right? I think what Uzbekistan did was kind of like a blessing and a curse when they said, okay, we want to do like 1 million developers, right? 1 million coders, which again, I believe it's a blessing that the government is kind of like thinking towards that way, but it's a curse because the market is not ready to accept that amount of developers, and therefore they would be looking for jobs outside of Uzbekistan. How ready are they for that? That's a big question mark. So in Ukraine, every big outsourcing company has a small office or like a lab inside of every major tech university. And basically the students starting from a year like 2, 3, they're already getting like practice, paid or unpaid, like internship, like paid or unpaid, at like working on a real job, like real actually projects. Of course, under surveillance of like, people who know how to do that. What it brings us to, so essentially people who graduate from the universities, even if they study in like chemistry or whatever, physics or something, they have clear path on getting practical knowledge. They have some technical skills from this like chemistry, physics, whatever, mathematics, and then they got some practical knowledge from the outsourcing companies that are working on real products. And therefore, once they enter the market, they can easily find jobs. So this is something that I would definitely consider for Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and other places. So it comes again to this like government role in this, right? In my country, the government didn't do much until at least 2014, which was the best. Even like I think 2018 probably, because they were not interfering. And they left the ecosystem and the whole industry develop itself. So what it led, it was organic growth. So I remember in 2012 when we were organizing the very first conference, IDC, Investor Decentralization Europe, the main sponsors were the outsourcing companies of this conference. But the conference was for the startups and for the investors. So I was like, okay, interesting. What is that for them? Basically, they were looking for talents back in the day. They were looking for these entrepreneurs to kind of like develop whatever the departments or something. So this is what happened. But in the long run, for Ukraine, it played well when so we developed first the outsourcing angle and like the whole industry, and then the people who were senior and are senior in the outsourcing, they start thinking, okay, now I have like, family, I have my apartment, I don't know, the country house, car, wherever. I'm not challenged enough on my job. What do I do? Now I go and start doing businesses because I understand the principles. I have even like clients already. And therefore, it's kind of like the startups arise with the very mature people, like senior people. They know how to build products. They have some savings, they kind of like can sustain like and bootstrap the company for quite some time, right? And they're motivated enough, which is great, isn't it? So I think to answer your question, Askar, I was just like jumping from like, recession and like this like government role. But generally speaking, your last question that you were asking about the junior developers, whether they should go to the corporate sector or the startups, of course, it's up to them. I would just say one thing is that the only asset we have, which is inevitable to spend, is the time, right? And I would think wisely, where do you want to go? If it's a startup that you believe in and you can get some equity in this company and they pay you maybe just less than the corporate, but like not too much, and you can still sustain yourself, I would choose the startup. If they don't pay you at all, probably it's harder. You would need to do it like as a part-time job, which can, later on become a full-time job. But again, everything is individualistic, and of course, it's safer to build a career in corporate. But then, maybe at the age of 40, as I just mentioned, once you kind of like have your family, everything set up, maybe then you will start your own company. So whatever your path is, it depends in the first hand is how ambitious you are and what kind of life do you want to live.
You mentioned in Ukraine it was this outsourcing industry was built up organically. In Kyrgyzstan, I point that way because it's behind the mountain. They have some IT companies working abroad for US, for European market. How about Uzbekistan as well? Do you have outsourcing companies? Because in Kazakhstan, we mostly don't. We mostly have companies for domestic market. But
Yes, we do have outsourcing companies for the domestic market and in some international companies that are operating from Uzbekistan, for example, EPAM, Exadel, and there are some local companies also that are making the softwares for the local businesses. But I agree with your point of view that there are many juniors coming up from the education, and there is no enough job vacancies in the market. And I think it takes some time to new companies that will open. And I think what we should do after this, after taking these juniors, they are just spending their money for educating these juniors. That's why the most juniors are not getting the jobs, and I think it will change from time to time, but many others that I'm seeing is establishing their own startups after getting some knowledge and can't get some job from the market, and they are going for the startup market and establishing their startups. And I think we will see some big rise in upcoming 10 or 5 years in this market also.
Igor mentioned this 1 million Uzbek coders. What about, do you know data? Do you have data? This program is finished, completed, or is it ongoing?
I think the major part is already completed, but there is some, I think it's still going on, 1 million Uzbek coders. And this is the same situation as, for example, from the universities, there will be graduating engineers from year to year, many engineers. And so the government also paying the attention to educate the people who are not studying in the universities, but other people also to educate them for the coding. And there are many coders, and it needs to be it needs to take some time for the infrastructure to be developed to employ all these people and make this new infrastructure.
In Kazakhstan, we also government give grants to these small IT schools, and basically government paying IT schools 50 or 100 units, for example, up to 100 units, they can pay $1,000 per one student. That's why new IT schools will be opening, but I don't know. So they will teach people, and well, in Kazakhstan, these junior engineers and even product managers, I'm not sure they will get employment or not. It's not like Ukraine. Yeah. So this discussion is kind of soon will end ours because we booked Igor for half an hour, but it seems to have like a big question.
Yeah.
And
sorry, one thing to add. So here in Azerbaijan, what we do is an interesting thing. So we support these educational centers, right? The ones that train the developers. But we provide the scholarships to the students from 70% to 100% scholarships, where 100% gets only like 10 to 15% of total amount of students. But the educational centers have a KPI of employing at least 70% of the graduates within 6 months after graduation. So the idea is that, and then as a government, we can check their social security number or whatever, like the paying tax number, and we can actually see if this person is employed and how much taxes this person is paid, and like we understand what is the salary, right? So if it's like fake or not, because sometimes like people could like put like the minimum wage or something. So the fact is it's actually working, because what's happening is that the education centers, they go check the market, like what is there in the market, like job portals and everything, and they say, okay, there is a need of 100 junior JavaScript developers or Python or something, and they say, okay, how about we prepare 20 of them, out of which 10 will be sponsored or like partially sponsored by the government. Then probably this whatever graduates, not 20 probably will graduate, wherever 18 will graduate, will have some substantial amount of chances to actually get jobs. So yeah, sorry, that was just like one of the approaches and the recommendation that we have here.
Thank you, Igor.
Yeah.
Please go.
Also in Uzbekistan, you mentioned the 1 million Uzbek coders, and after paying attention to the education system, the government is now organizing something like competitions for the startups, competitions for the programmers. And I recently heard about the president tag that overall sum that will be for the winners was over $1 million. And this is going on this year. And I think the government now see that we have to employ these coders and we have to establish new companies, and they are paying the attention for the startup market also. I think we are in the beginning of this process right now.
Thank you, Azula. This is overall what you told, also what Igor, especially Igor, a lot of learnings our viewers can take out from this benchmarking and how it's done in from your experience. Guys, you have questions, please type in comments. We will put them on the screen because we will have to let go Igor. We booked him for half an hour, 40 minutes. But meanwhile, if I don't know, Azizullah have prepared questions because I didn't. We can ask Igor while he is still with us. And I wanted to pitch Igor. Maybe let's do another stream next time. If you next time could share. So there's another issue. When I was in Belarus, in Minsk, a few years ago, before all these events, and I tried to pitch to them, Central Asian developers. I said, let's cooperate, you, because Belarus, you sell coders to US, also sell Central Asians. And some of the folks I met, they said in Minsk, look, there is no brand Kazakh coder, and nobody knows quality, even if you charge like 5 times cheaper than Belarusian coder, it's too risky. Nobody will like invest a lot to you because if that coder will spoil some project, it will be 100 times more expensive than saving like, I don't know, $5 per hour for this guy. So this is a challenge for Central Asia, and because this is for next time discussion. If you can,
absolutely,
because you see, Riga, Baltics is Ukraine is higher level compared to other regions.
Yeah, Askar, I think 100% that's a good topic to discuss. I believe it's not only comes to just developers, but also generally speaking about startups and even investors. So like even the investors that coming from the region do not have access to the deal flow in, say, US or UK or somewhere. And this is another issue because they cannot learn from accessing the better deals. Because a good entrepreneur who's raising, say, Series A or something, who is like questioning, like, okay, where's this fund from, right? Like, what is this, like, and the money come from? Like, how, like, can they actually pass the KYC process? How transparent are this, is this money, right? So they don't know much about the country. And I think that generally speaking, this is like a bigger question that we can discuss, is like the branding and positioning of the Central Asia, either as one region, like, not just Kazakhstan separately and Uzbekistan separate, maybe just like as a 60 million, I think, the population, right? Like
80.
Okay, 80 million. Yeah, as like a region, not only for the a market expansion, but like just like to explain, there's a talent pool there, and there's investors there and everything. But generally speaking, on the branding and position of the whole region or the countries themselves separately. So yeah, I'm happy to take the discussion, and then I'm also happy to, if you want, invite some of the people who run the outsourcing businesses in Ukraine, if you're interested. We can do that.
I think awesome. Azul, what do you think?
Yeah, that's the perfect opportunity. And I have one last quick question. What kind of unique opportunity do you see in the Central Asia market in terms of startups? I mean, their capabilities, or is there any unique something that makes them different from other markets?
Okay, I mean, that's a good question. First of all, it's very hard to answer that question, right? I see probably like every week I have access to like 15, more or less 10 to 15 new companies from Central Asia. I mean, the ones at least that apply to us. So I must say that there are some brilliant ideas. I do see also that there is a bit of a like mindset issue with some, like with a lot of them. Like they just like limit themselves only in the Central Asia. I would love to see more global plays out of here. And this is again, I don't know why is that happening. If it's like systematic error or I don't know what is happening there. We still need to figure out. But I would love to have more international teams and collaboration. So I would love to see, I don't know, Ukrainian working with a Kazakh or Uzbek. I want to see British people selling, being like leading the sales for a company from Uzbekistan, whether it's outsourcing or a startup. I would like to see Americans being hired as CEOs of the companies. Like Grammarly did back in the day, by the way. So I really want to see, you know, how this kind of like collaboration, getting the best knowledge from someone like from another market, can like speed up the processes and like show by doing in Central Asia. In terms of unique positioning, I do not know like any of this like strong vertical, at least right now. Maybe something's happening in deep tech medicine with Cerebra and AI Dentis and some other ones. Maybe something interesting will come out of there. But otherwise, I really want to see more of, you know, Alexei Lee, who is building the company, like did a couple of exits in the region and then go on and try his or her skills in, say, US, or like Clockster is doing, I think, in Malaysia or Indonesia. I don't know exactly. So I really want this, the Central Asia not to be a lock for the entrepreneurs, but rather be like a springboard, like to test and then just go to wherever the new market is. Not necessarily US. Leave them alone. There's like Indonesia of 100 million people. There's, I don't know, Egypt, Nigeria, I don't know, like massive countries. I would really want to see more of this happening from the Central Asia.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
We definitely need to make this stream on outsourcing. If you would invite IT outsourcing guys, we could also publicize in our outsourcing coders public. It would be awesome. And guys, you can catch Igor in Almaty in June or in Baku these days. And please type questions in the you watch recording. If you watch recording, type questions in the comments. We will send them to Igor and then to type reply. Right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure being with you today. Pleasure meeting you, Azizo. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.